the last one's a rumour that's picked up a bit of pace over the last couple of weeks, and it's gone a little bit quieter over the last few days. Is James Maddison to Arsenal? Is there any truth in this, or is it?
Yeah, it's another Tielemans situation. It's another Tielemans situation. It's there's nothing concrete. It's a lot of rumour. Look, I would be surprised if there wasn't interest in James Maddison. You'd be doing something wrong if there wasn't interest in James Maddison. But again, he would be very expensive for them to do if they decided to do it. But Leicester City will be prepared. I mean, they always try as well to plan ahead. They always try and protect themselves in terms of if there's a huge offer for one of their players, and they've experienced it every summer, as I said, that there's some sort of succession plan. So they will be looking at that as well. And they'll have identified a possible replacement for James Maddison if that does come to pass. And I think in ways that's one of the reasons why Samare is potentially coming in. I mean, that's nearly done. It's really so close. I think there's an agreement between the clubs and the players, so it's just a case of waiting for paperwork and being able to do the medicals and stuff like that. The pandemic has complicated so many things. But if you look at Samari, he is almost like a hybrid of Ndidi and Tielemans in the way he plays. Doesn't offer a massive amount in the final third, only one goal in his senior career, but he's got physicality. And he's not just a sitting midfielder. He can bomb forward. He loves to carry the ball. So they're looking at well, okay, if somebody comes in with huge money for Ndidi or somebody comes in with huge money for Tielemans, we've got somebody who can play both roles. And that's what they're trying to do, I think. They're just trying to protect themselves and progress at the same time.
So, yes, just such an amazing thing to say as well. And one thing I want to touch on as well, there's been a few players linked to outgo from Leicester City. One of them being Dennis Praet. I mean, I think he's been so unlucky with injuries, and you can tell. I think he's one of a Leicester City fan. I know James, who couldn't make it tonight, he's a huge Dennis Praet fan as well, and he's always talking about him. But it looks like he's on his way out because of the likes of, you were just saying before, Samore coming into the club. And is he just weighing up his option at the moment, or is that a person that's looking to leave?
He at the end of the Euros, he'll probably look at his options. But again, he's under contract, so it'd have to be something that's acceptable for Leicester City. And Brendan's talked about him at the end of last season. I think the press conference just before the Tottenham game, he was asked by Jordan Blackwell from the Leicester Mercury about Dennis, because we haven't seen a lot of him since he come back from the hamstring. And he said, look, he's just been really, really unlucky because, he's been playing in that number 10 and he offers something different at number 10. He's a running 10. I mean, I did a feature about him running past Jamie Vardy in the opening game of the season. He's not a Madison Perez that floats and tries to find the pockets of space and turn and play people in. He runs beyond Vardy to try and force defences back, because that makes the back four or back five retreat, because they don't want to give away space for somebody like him running in behind. So he offered them something different. But second half of the season, we saw very little of him. I mean, that hamstring was so cruel at Stoke. I mean, we knew it was a serious one straight away, the way he pulled up. But I think he's just a bit frustrated because he's been at the club a couple of years now. He's not played as much football as he wants to. He's of that age now where he wants to be playing regular. He might be fearing that his international situation might be affected by a lack of club football. So I think he might be something that he's looking at. But Leicester City are at that level now. They're pushing for that level now where they can't give a Dennis Praet guarantees that he's going to be playing week in, week out. They're aiming high. So it might be that if there's interest and somebody puts in an appropriate bid, he might be going. There might be a couple of others as well. Papi Mendy. I mean, Hamza Chowdhury was the one that, we were really surprised in January when we had a press conference and we asked about Hamza, and Brendan basically said, look, he's for sale. He basically said that. He said, look, if somebody wants to come in, he's not going out on loan. If he's going to go out, he's going to go for a fee. And I think they're in a position now where they know they've got to generate some money to make further additions. I know they want to do a bit more business. They want a left-footed winger. They want somebody like that. They want to increase their attacking options. I personally think they need a centre back as well with Wes retiring. I don't think they've got enough cover there. I don't know whether really they're looking at it. People talk about Tarkowski, but that's too expensive now. I mean but that there was an opportunity perhaps a year ago or perhaps even further back. I think that ship sailed now. Personally, I think he's getting to an age where he's probably going a bit old, unless it gets to a situation where you get Johnny Evans that lands on your doorstep for £3.5 million. What a bargain that was! You're not going to get that for Tarkowski. So I personally think they might use the loan market like they did last time with Cengiz. They might have a look around and see who's available to come in, but they need cover. But those three for Farnese, Yunsu, Evans, and when Justin's back. And we've got to give Justin time as well, because we've seen Ricardo, it takes you time to get back from an ACL. I mean, that was a career-ending injury in my day. And now, they're coming back within 6-9 months. It's incredible, but they're not the same player for a while. So I think you'll see Ricky getting back to his best this season, and hopefully towards the end of next season, James Justin, you might start seeing him getting back to it.
Yeah. No, that's interesting, especially about that. In terms of the left back and Hamza Chowdhury. Obviously, he was one of my favourite players. I think these guys know. I talk about Hamza Chowdhury all the time because the potential for him to be. Look at them smiling. The potential for him, in my opinion, was there. But I know, Alex, you've got a question on Danny Ward as well.
Yeah, just with just with how he played in the Euros this year. Is there any talk about him, being linked to other clubs? Because I know, I think he's just, for me personally, I think he's just biding his time to take over as number one eventually here at Leicester when, Schmeichel gets a little bit older. But do you see any clubs, in and around the Premier League, coming to Leicester and being like, is he available? Because he's the starter on a lot of Premier League clubs, in my opinion.
He is. He is a fantastic goalkeeper, isn't he? I mean, every time I've seen him, I remember vividly the League Cup game at Wolves when he came in for a rare appearance, and I think he saved 3 penalties, including in the shootout that night. And he is a great goalkeeper. And you don't pay £12 million for a goalkeeper unless you think he's eventually going to step up. But he's been unfortunate that he's got Kasper Schmeichel in front of him, who is one of the world's best goalkeepers. I mean, he's proving it again, not just his shot stopping, not just his performance in goal, not just his distribution, but his leadership. I mean, we all saw his leadership when Christian Eriksen collapsed against Finland, and he's going to be the club captain. So he's such an integral part of Leicester City now, and I can't see it. I mean, perhaps when they signed Danny, they, as I said to you about succession and planning ahead, perhaps they thought there might be somebody coming in for Kasper, and they went for Danny because they thought he was excellent. So Danny's been unfortunate, but there will come a stage where Danny will look at himself and think, well, I'm getting to an age now really well, I want to be playing regular, because, you can't be in a position where you're playing more times for your country than you are for your club in a season, especially when you're as good as him. I mean, but they've got so many good goalkeepers at Leicester. Danny Iverson is a good goalkeeper. They've got the Polish lad that's been playing in the under-23s. They've got a young American goalkeeper who's been training with the first team.
There's another one now as well, isn't there? From Hartlepool.
They are. The recruitment has been. I mean, I know you want to ask about under-23s, but the recruitment. They don't just aim for. They don't just look at recruiting for the first team. The under-23s as well, the under-18s. They try. I mean, Ben Shaw was a classic example. Getting him in when he was, he was released early on. They do try and bring in young talent and try and develop them, because they know that's going to save a massive amount of money if that player comes good.
Yeah, definitely agree there. I've just got one more question. Speaking of the under-23s, Tavares, I mean, he had a fantastic game for the 60 minutes that he played against Brighton. He ended up winning the game, and then everything's just gone quiet about that. I don't know if you've got any more knowledge about Tavares, because it's one player that we saw could potentially be the future, as you were saying, of this under-23 stepping up to the Premier League, and he had a fantastic game. But any news on that, because that's gone quiet as well?
Yeah, it has gone quiet. I mean, I did a feature on Sydney. I spoke to his dad.
Yes,
and they were saying there was interest in him, and but they wanted to stay at Leicester, but I have to be honest. I haven't got an update because I haven't pursued that for the last. I've been focused so much on Dakar and Samari and the Euros and Casper and Castagna and all that everything that's gone on. Sydney sort of slipped through the cracks, so I'll have to pick that up tomorrow.